Today, we're going to be comparing some of the most popular Porsches to see which one would fit best with your collection, starting with...
Hi guys, today I'm going to talk to you about the second most expensive car that Porsche makes and the most powerful manual 911 that they've ever made. I'm Nima from MVL Leasing, and this is a 2023 911 Sport Classic. So let's start back in 1973. Porsche made a car called the 2.7 RS. This is where this whole idea for the Sport Classic was kind of born. The first time that they actually created a car that kind of harks back to that car was in 2010. This is the third iteration of the Sport Classic, the first one having been released in 2010. With a car like this, it may look like a normal 911, but the devil is in the details with this car. So we'll start with the color. This color is actually called Sport Gray. A lot of people think that this is chalk. Chalk is an extremely popular Porsche color. This color, Sport Gray, is specific to the Sport Classic. There's a lot of things that on this car that are specific to this model, which we'll go into detail. This car is based on a Porsche 911 Turbo, so you'll notice that the front bumper bears a lot of similarity, very similar to what you get in a Porsche 911 Turbo. A couple details up here that are specific to this car, one of the most important being the badge. So this Porsche badge that you see right here is actually a heritage badge. When you see this compared to a normal 911 or Porsche badge, it looks a lot different. Another cool thing is that they use real gold to make this and the monikers on the car. They're not solid gold, but they use gold in order to make it. These stripes on the car, these are specific to a Sport Classic, and they're painted on, they're not stickers. They also kind of lay in the middle of this indentation in the hood. There's an indentation in the roof. They call this the double bubble. This is specific to a Sport Classic as well. Another thing that lets you know that you're looking at a Sport Classic is these really modernized Fuchs wheels. So back in the 70s, when they had a lot of high power 911s, they had wheels that looked a lot like this, but they were probably something like 15 or 16 inch. With this car, they're forged, they're center locking, 20 inch in the front and 21 inch in the back. 275 rubber in the front and 315 rubber in the back. I told you this car was based on a 911 Turbo. All 911 Turbos are PDK transmission and they're all-wheel drive. This one is a 7-speed manual and rear-wheel drive only. So this is actually the most powerful manual 911 that Porsche makes. It's 542 horsepower, which is about a 30 horsepower deficit over a regular 911 Turbo. And there's reasons for that. This being a manual car, it can't deal with the horsepower and the torque that a 911 Turbo motor makes, which is a 3.7 liter twin turbo flat six. What they had to do was reduce the horsepower a little bit, but more importantly, they reduced the torque by about 20%. This is the sort of power that this transmission can handle. It's a 7-speed manual with rev matching. When you're gearing down, the engine will blip its own throttle in order to rev match to make your downshifts a lot more smoother. Like I said, this car is all about driver engagement. It's not all about power and things like that. When a car is turbocharged, it develops a lot of heat. So you need a lot of intercoolers, heat exchangers, or radiators in order to help cool the engine down. So in the front end, you have 3 big radiators that are visible at least. So you have one behind these vertical slats here, which are actually active. And you have one big intercooler there, your main one in here that's protected with this plastic grill to protect against rocks and punctures and things like that. And then you have another one on the other side. You also have your daytime running lights, which also work as your turn signal indicators. A couple other cool things up here is you have standard parking sensors, which are really useful, but you have a front parking camera. So you have a nice fisheye camera here that kind of helps you judge how close you're getting to the curb. Wouldn't want to damage this bumper, it's quite expensive. Over here is actually your night vision camera. So this is a thermal vision camera, and this little part that you see sticking out is actually a little spout to squirt water on it to clean it. So when you activate night vision, the image is transposed onto your infotainment to help you see at nighttime. And like with thermal imaging, anything that shows up white on your display is something that has a heat signature. So that means you'll pick up people, animals. It's really neat. Sometimes you're driving behind a car, it looks like that their exhaust is all white, all just because of the heat. Military grade, very good stuff. Okay, let's come around to the side of the car here. We'll start here at the front wheel. Like I said, you have those forged wheels that are meant to look like the original Fuchs wheels. It's gloss black on the inside. The one thing that's a standard feature on the Sport Classic is these giant carbon ceramic brakes. They're painted black and they're very big and very powerful. We keep coming down here. You're gonna see your Porsche exclusive manufacturer badge, gold and black. Again, they used a little bit of real gold on that. This car has surround view. So you have fisheye cameras that are at the bottom of the mirror here. So what the car does is basically, if you're parking and things like that, it stitches together the image from this mirror, that mirror, the front camera and the rear camera, and gives you almost like a bird's eye view on your display, which gives you a better idea of the space around you when you're parking. So this avoids any mishaps like curbing a wheel and things like that. One thing that's cool about this car is, like I said, it's kind of based off of a 911 turbo, but one thing that people use to identify turbos from non-turbos is the vents in the door, the big scoops. Now, this was removed on purpose. So this fender is specific to this car, and you'll notice that it starts here, comes all the way up here, and is the back. This is probably the biggest panel on the car, and even goes along the bottom of the door there. Now, if these vents are removed, you're probably gonna wonder, well, the purpose of those vents, first of all, was to feed to radiators, because again, turbocharged engines create a lot of heat. So these vents were specifically designed to cool the engine. So now that they're missing, the car has to find another way to cool that, which we're gonna get to in a bit. The rear wheels here are 21s. You still have the black brake caliper. It's a 315 wheel in the back. That's actually very wide for a car of this size. Being rear wheel drive and having this much horsepower, you need as much rubber that you can get in order to lay this power down efficiently. And this car does it really well. Pirelli P0 tires, which is great for performance and perfectly compliant for the street. Okay, a lot of nice details here in the back of the car, probably the most notable being the duckbill spoiler. This is something that's specific to Sport Classics. So this is designed for downforce. It's fixed with a built-in LED light. You have the gold badging here, again, specific to a 911 Sport Classic. Like I said, they use real gold to make these things. This one was equipped with the gray taillight. So although they're gray, they blink red. You also have the one continuous light, which seems to be a theme for all Porsches these days, starting with 992 generation. All cars have this now. It's a really nice touch, kind of really widens the car. Okay, so another thing that's specific to the Sport Classic here is this Porsche Heritage badge. I believe this is called a lollipop badge. So back in the day, Porsche used to award these to cars that achieved or reached about 100,000 miles, which at the time was, or even today on a car like this, is a lot of mileage. But it's a heritage badge, you get it with the car. It's a really nice touch on this engine cover, which brings me to my next thing. So this is the only way that you can kind of open to kind of take a peek at the engine. So if I open it up like this, there's not really a lot to see here. You have a couple fans here that help expel some of the heat from the engine when the car is stationary. You have a Sport Classic badge right here reminding you what car you're looking at. Here's for your oil cap, and this is for your coolant. So the indentation in the hood and the indentation in the roof looks good, but with Porsche form follows function. So the real purpose of this is to channel air over the middle of the car, over the back, and to kind of feed the air over this ducktail spoiler. But most importantly, there's a big radiator heat exchanger down there. And these vertical fins are designed to take the air that follows this indentation and force feeds this intercooler. That's there because there are no side vents on this car. Another cool thing back here is that this car uses the same lightweight plastic but strong composite glass that you would find in a GT3 RS. Now the hood and the roof are also made of carbon fiber for lightness to lower the center of gravity on the car. When you open the hood, you can see on the underside all of the exposed carbon fiber. So you can have the paint exposed if you like, but this is just a reminder of how light this hood is. Very, very light. This stuff is paper thin. So back here, this duckbill spoiler provides downforce, and just in front of it, air is fed into a big heat exchanger. But the air goes through the heat exchanger and actually exits here. So this diffuser not only looks good, but it serves a very important purpose. I've shown you a little bit about the important details on the outside of the car. We're gonna go inside, but before I do that, I just wanna show the color-coded key. So the key on the car, it's supposed to be shaped like a 911, and the trim pieces on the side and the bottom are paint matched to the car, which is sport gray. Another cool thing is that I mentioned was the heritage badge on the hood. That's not the only heritage badge. Even the badge on the Porsche key, the badge on the steering wheel, the badge on the rims are all heritage Porsche badges and differ from your ordinary production 911. Okay, let's hop in the car. These door handles are pretty much flush and they're touch sensitive. So when you press unlock on the key, they kind of present themselves and you just open it like this and you open the door here. You have your Porsche puddle lamp, which displays the Porsche logo on the ground. That's a really nice touch. This particular car, the fellow who had spec'd it had got custom door sills. This one says Wicked. You can get it to say whatever you want. With a car like this, it's an exclusive manufacturer, so you can be really unique with all the little touches that you want to make changes to. Again, it's just as detailed in here as it is on the outside, so I'll just go highlight a few of the things that make this car special. The one thing that is common to Sport Classics is the Pepita houndstooth interior. So the inlays of the seats are actually cloth. That's good for grip and stuff like that, but it's also kind of a heritage thing. This is all saddle brown, and it all kind of ties in together really nicely. The floor mats are trimmed in the same type of leather that the seats are, and they kind of have this almost wicker look texture to them. Another nice touch, something Sport Classic specific. When you're looking at your instrument cluster, it says Sport Classic right in the middle, and then you're gonna see that it has a silhouette of the car in your left screen here. The tach is dead center where it should be, and the numbers on the tachometer and on your central clock here, the Sport Chrono clock, is all light green. Again, something specific to Sport Classic. With 992s, they did away with a lot of the physical button arrays that they had in previous Porsches in an effort to kind of simplify the interior, and I think they did a fantastic job. They still left some important buttons that give you that tactile feel, like the button for your front lift kit, the button to activate your exhaust flaps, turning your traction control off, and your dynamic chassis control. This kind of stiffens your sway bars and kind of messes with the firmness of your suspension, depending on what you want to do with the car. You have a couple other buttons here for your temperature and your fan and things like that. And one thing that I love is a volume knob. And they've kept that here, and it has that really nice tactile feel. The screen is touch screen, and it offers haptic feedback. So when you touch things and move things around, the screen gives you a little vibration just to let you know whatever you're trying to do, the car is interpreting that properly. A couple other details that you don't get in all 911s unless you spend a boatload of money. This car's got the upgraded Burmester sound system. So you have the brushed aluminum Burmester speaker covers here with the Burmester engraving on them. I believe this is about a $6,000 or $7,000 option. Really nice for a touring car, and that's kind of what this car is designed for, you know, driving around and be almost like a GT car without being a balls to the wall car like a GT3 or anything like that. The whole dash here is stitched in leather. Even your air vents here are stitched in leather. And one detail that probably nobody would notice unless you take a look yourself is your fuse box cover. So your fuse box cover is also stitched in leather. This is just a piece of plastic, but hey, why not? You're already spending 350 grand, so it's a nice detail to have. This is the Sport Classic 911 badge on the console here. So again, this is made using real gold, and it also lists your production number. This particular car is number 446 of 1,250 cars for the world. The fellow who had spec'd this car out also had the fire extinguisher included as an option. So this just sits right behind your passenger's wheels, just beneath their seat. This is the most engaging part of this car, the 7-speed manual transmission. So as I mentioned before, they use the engine from the 911 Turbo, but when you're using this particular 7-speed manual gearbox, it cannot deal with all the power that that car puts down. So although it has the same 3.7 liter flat six engine that you get in a turbo, I said that it has a 30 horsepower reduction, but they reduced the torque just over 100 foot-pounds. That's really important because if it would be too powerful, it would be extremely punishing to this transmission. And again, it's all about engagement. A couple other cool details on the interior. You have these knee rests on each side of your transmission tunnel here. So this is especially useful to the driver when you're on and off the throttle, so your knee's not banging against this trim. All stitched in leather. In your armrest here, you have Porsche exclusive manufacturer embroidered or pressed into it. That's a really nice touch. The headrests have the Porsche logo pressed into them as well. And that, again, that's the Porsche Heritage logo. It's not the same Porsche logo that you see in the regular production cars. They kind of put a cup holder here. It looks like a bit of an afterthought, but hey, I think they fit it in really nicely. And again, this is all stitched in leather and ties in really nicely. The saddle brown leather bolsters and the houndstooth inlays carry on in the back. Although these are much smaller seats, they carry on the theme. It all has some level of continuity. The roof especially is all black perforated Alcantara. It gives you a little bit more of that sporty feel. Now, some people will look at this interior and think that, oh, it's basic and it's kind of like a cost-cutting measure. It couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. This is exclusive attention to detail that all is a nod to Porsche's history and heritage. So it's quite exclusive, and it says exclusive all over the car, so there's your proof. This car was spec'd with a black dash, again stitched in leather. Same with the steering wheel, nice sports steering wheel, nice and fat with your thumb rests here. Sometimes at 12 o'clock there's a stripe there just to kind of help you judge your steering a little bit better. This car has it, but another cool thing, like I mentioned before, every Porsche crest on this car is the heritage badge, and the one on the steering wheel or the airbag cover is no different. Another cool thing about this steering wheel, a lot of new 911s these days have it, is the drive mode. So rather than dicking around with switches and stuff like that here to change your drive modes, they keep it right on the steering wheel. So you have your sport mode and ones that you can also program. So if you like the stiff suspension but the soft throttle, you can program all that to your own individual setting. Okay, so let's let the car do some of the talking and hear what this thing sounds like. One thing that's important to note about this car is that every time Porsche had made a turbo rear-wheel drive car, they're referred to as widow makers. Now, this car is rear-wheel drive, and one benefit it has over an all-wheel drive turbo, it's about 200 pounds lighter on the front end because there's no axle shafts up there. No power is sent up here either. The weight distribution is just over 60% rear and about 40% front, around there. And you need that because when you have the engine back here, you put a lot of weight on the rear wheels. If those are your only drive wheels, it just helps them dig into the pavement a little bit more. Despite the car having 543 horsepower, it's kind of really hard to break loose unless you were really trying to. A couple of the things that help you maintain that level of traction and control is the weight over the rear axle and the rear axle steering. That's a very important part too. So at lower speeds, the wheels turn in opposing directions, and at higher speeds, they turn in the same direction. That makes this car an extremely well-handling car, despite having 540 some horsepower directed only to the back wheels. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed learning about some of the details that make this car very special. To look at the factory option listing, please refer to our website, mvl.ca. And if you have any additional questions about this car, feel free to email me, nima@mvl.ca. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you come in and you saw this video, we would love to know about it. So let us know what you thought. Porsche is no stranger to the racetrack, especially the Nürburgring, where they dedicated all the development of this car. I'm Nima from MVL Leasing, and this is a 2019 Porsche 911 GT3 RS. If you guys have any specific questions about the cars that I'm shooting, you can see my email in the description. Don't forget to like, comment, and hit the bell so you're notified anytime we put out a new video. Okay, so what we're looking at is a 2019 911 GT3 RS. The whole RS thing started about 2 generations ago. And one thing that Porsche does with the generations of each of their 911s is that they have a 0.1 and a 0.2. So the 0.2 is really just a light revision. Sometimes the lights change shape. The chassis is still the same. Engine gets a little bit of a power bump, but you just get a bit of an updated look. So this is 991.2. So if I had this next to a 2016, the first GT3 RS of this generation, you'd be able to spot these differences a lot clearer, but I'm gonna point out a few of them. But first, let's get some numbers out of the way. 0 to 62.9 seconds, 7-speed Porsche double clutch transmission, one of the best in the business if you ask me. This car had a slight power bump to 520 horsepower, and you get all that out of a 4-liter naturally aspirated 6-cylinder engine. It's a Boxer 6, so the cylinders are horizontally opposed like this, making the engine more compact. With all 911s, the engine is behind the rear axle. This color is called Lizard Green. It's a very popular color. I'm gonna just go over a few details you have up here. Now the car, you can tell by its styling that it just wants to go to the track and it wants to race. You can tell up here because of all of your venting and stuff like that, and your front lip. So behind here, you have 2 big radiators and one on the other side too. The front bumper actually has an opening here too that kind of directs air over the car, that it collects it in this kind of big mouth behind the license plate right here. For this revised version of the 911, the LED signature got a little sharper and got a little thinner. The one before kind of had a bigger housing for this light, which looked good when it was on, but kind of
took up too much space. This makes it a bit more slitty, and I think it looks better because they added this nice little trim piece that kind of directs air and helps scoop it and feed these radiators. This particular car has what's called PDLS, which is Porsche Dynamic Lighting System. This one is spec'd with a black housing, so inside the light it's all black. I've seen cars with silver. I think black looks the best in any color, or with any color. So the lights actually kind of do a dance. They move up and down, and they kind of turn depending on what your steering wheel is doing. So this kind of helps light up around bends and things like that, and you see things a lot sooner. I think it's a really nice feature. The hood is new for this car, so it's made of carbon fiber. There's a package that you can get with the GT3 RS called the Wyzak package. So a Wyzak package pretty much exposes the carbon on your hood, among a few other things. But this one does not have it, but it still looks nice. One interesting detail about the RSs is the Porsche crest that goes on the hood is actually a sticker. And this sticker, it's a sticker because this is how sticky they were, no pun intended, when it comes to shaving weight on this car. So it's very light, and you can tell that aerodynamics is a huge priority or huge strength that this car has. You have these scoops in the hood. Okay, these are actually for your brakes. What we're going to show you in a second when I open the front here. You still have a front luggage compartment, but these pretty much feed these little pieces that run some hoses down to the inside of your rotor. So when you're banging on those brakes in the track, this is where it gets that. The reason why they move these up here is so they can make these air dams bigger to feed those radiators. So I thought it was a really nice touch, and it kind of gives the car a little bit more of an aggressive look. And with Porsche, form always follows function. So they're never gonna do anything just for style's sake. Everything has a very direct purpose. That's what those are for. When we come around to the side here, you kind of get a closer look as to the proportions of this car relative to a regular 911. So your front fenders are flared out even further. You can tell that your wheels sit further out than a regular 911 because your front lip is actually blends into your wheel arch here. And you can see this is like almost an inch that this sticks out, and this wheel is absolutely flush. So you need this when you're kind of trying to carve corners and things of that nature. Side indicators, these are even flared into the bodywork. So everything kind of fits and carries on this this kind of theme here. Because if you look at a regular 911, this turn signal indicator is actually flat. Once you get up close, you can see how much work they actually did to the wheels and the wheel wells in order to kind of get this look. And again, it's for a reason, it's for handling, right? Now the one thing, this is a first for GT3 RSs, is the venting on the fenders. When Porsche did this, everybody lost their mind because it just makes the car look that much more aggressive. The purpose of these vents is to help deal with the turbulent air that's in the wheel wells. It's a really nice touch. They have them on GT2 RSs as well. And they carried this on with the GT3 RS that followed this one. It's been a huge hit since it came out, and people are manufacturing fenders to put on 911s that are not RSs that kind of carry on this same look. And they did this with the GT3 RS that followed as well, and it looks just as deadly. And when you're standing here, you kind of get a better idea as to how flared these wheel arches are. The one thing about 911s that's always good is that they're very subtly styled. This one is probably the loudest one, but there are still a lot of subtle details that kind of indicate to you that this car means business. So let's talk about the wheel. So this car comes with Pilot Sport Cup 2s, which is a good tire for the street, but it really shines on the track. The wheels are forged and they're center locking. This car was optioned from the factory with a painted ring on the rim that matches the paint of the car, which is lizard green. Huge carbon ceramic brakes. These things are large. 6-piston Brembo calipers really shine on the track. You can get these cars with magnesium wheels. This car was not equipped with that feature, like this particular one, but you can get it. It's a standard feature on the GT2 RS, which is 700 horsepower, but you gotta pay extra for that on this. But that doesn't mean this wheel's crap. This wheel is really nice, and it's got a nice satin black finish too. The RS logo on the center cap is also lizard green to match the rest of the car. Another thing I like about RSs is your kind of flared side skirt. Now, I had a 911 at one point. It was a 2013 C4, and with a little bit of elbow grease, you can get this side skirt to fit, and it really changes the ground effects of the car. I like it. It's made of black plastic, which is good because when you're kind of beating this car on a track, if they're made of anything more extravagant, they're just gonna get destroyed. But I think they look really nice and kind of carry on this whole flared look that we were just talking about up here. These mirrors, you can pay extra to get them on a standard 911, but they're free or standard on a GT3 RS, and they're designed to be more aerodynamic, which is why you kind of have this hole here. Not all of them are like this, but that's an RS feature. This car was ordered with a decal kit, and this decal kit was around since even the first GT3 RS, which was in the early 2000s, in the 996 generation. So half the font is kind of cut out of this black stripe, and I think it's a really nice touch. All these 911s, especially turbos and RSs, they have this thing called the dog leg. So it's pretty much a nice thick piece of paint protection film that they kind of put at the lower portion of this fender. This back haunch kind of sticks out so much that it's absolutely necessary, otherwise it's just gonna get dusted by all the rocks that your front wheel is kicking up and from other cars as well. One thing that you're gonna notice too is that anytime you see a 911 with a rear fender this wide and it has this vent in it, usually that always denoted a turbo. It didn't take them very long to integrate this as a feature for the GT3 RS. And this basically feeds the air intake system. So I think that's a really nice touch too. Being an RS, weight is an important thing to consider, or something that the engineers put a lot of emphasis on. And one way that they did that is by giving it a carbon fiber front or luggage compartment cover and a magnesium roof. It's painted, you can't tell, but I'm telling you, it's made of magnesium. The glass on the back and on the sides is actually extra thin polycarbonate plastic. So it's not the same glass that you get in a regular 911. You don't even have defrost lines in here because it's plastic, but they were able to save a significant amount of weight by making that change. Also, no rear seats. We're gonna show you when we get inside, but they did that to save weight as well, but it's actually good because you have a lot of places to put your luggage and duffel bags and things of that nature. On the front of the car, one thing that kind of goes from front to back, you see there's like an indentation in the middle of the hood. This is carried on into the roof. I've heard this be referred to as a double bubble. Makes it a little bit easier to accommodate somebody who's wearing a helmet, which is what you need if you're on the track. But more importantly, it takes air from the front of the car, directs it over, and feeds your engine in the back. With this car being a 2019, the second GT3 RS of the same 991 generation, the engine cover was revised to make it look a bit more modern. But that's all designed to kind of direct air down into the middle because you have some fans there that help keep your engine cool as well. And we come back here to the rear wheel. This is where all the action is. So the car is rear wheel drive and it revs to almost 9,000 RPM. This is a serious tire. It's a 325 tire. I don't think they've ever fit a tire this fat on a 911 before. And it kind of hides its proportions because it's kind of like within this flared wheel arch, but it's like a steamroller back here if you're driving from one of these or driving behind one of these. For the first time, as a way to enhance the handling of this car, they integrated four-wheel steering. With the GT3 RS that was first introduced in 2016, it had four-wheel steering, but it was revised a little bit to make it handle a little bit better for the 2019, for the 991.2. Everything that they did was to shave off a few seconds off the Nürburgring lap time. So believe it or not, by revising a little bit of the aerodynamics, the spoiler changed shape slightly, the front bumper changed shape slightly, the four-wheel steering system was revised. All of these things amounted to almost a 25-second advantage over the 2016 GT3 RS. Not only that, the Porsche 918 supercar put down a similar time to this. This actually beat the 918 supercar around the Nürburgring, which is a tall order and a huge achievement for a regular 911. That's where all the development was done for this car, and that's where anyone who's building a serious sports car spends the most time doing their research and development to finely tune the chassis and things like that for whatever car is being designed, because the good thing about the Nürburgring is that it's I think it's a 12-mile track. It will expose any weakness that the car has when it comes to handling and chassis tuning and things like that. And if there's one thing that was done extremely well on this car is tuning this chassis. One thing that the RS has above other 911s is all of your suspension parts are actually made of a special material that contains a little bit more metal rather than a lot of rubber. Rubber's good, okay, but when you're trying to shave seconds off a lap time, you get different suspension hardware that kind of makes the car handle a little bit better, and it really shows on a circuit. But it's still compliant for the street. So that was a really good attention to detail. The one thing that kind of asks for the most attention on this car is the rear wing. So this rear wing has some level of adjustability. It's manual adjustability. So the idea is that if you're going to any circuit, like whether it's Most Sport or Circuit of the Americas, whatever, you can adjust the angle of this wing. When you adjust the angle of this wing, you adjust the downforce, and some tracks you need it more than others. So it gives you that level of adjustment, but you got to do it manually. The pillars that hold up this spoiler are actually kind of hollow in the middle. This is done for two reasons: lightness and strength, because when you have this shape in here, this wing is very, very strong. The pillars of this spoiler, where they attach to the engine cover, also have another spoiler. So there's another spoiler that's actually integrated into the bodywork as well. So there's actually two spoilers back here. You see your third brake light, which is kind of exposed right there, and you have your engine cover that has a few openings where it can actually suck in air for the fans on top of the engine cover. They don't do a whole lot, mainly for when the car's stationary, but again, heat dissipation, big deal. That's why you have these vents here, the vents at the bottom, and the vents on top of the engine cover. I like how neat and tidy it is back here. There's not a whole lot to distract you. I was telling you that the crest that's on the hood of the car is a sticker. The moniker on the back of the car is a sticker as well. I thought that was a really nice touch. The exhaust is titanium. Titanium is good for sound and it's good for lightness. The connecting rods in the engine are made of titanium. The cylinder walls are actually coated in plasma. The exhaust is titanium. A lot of fine details like that were done in order to kind of enhance the performance of this car. Something you wouldn't know unless you read it or had the engine apart. But that is how this car is able to achieve 520 horsepower out of a naturally aspirated 4-liter engine. When you have a naturally aspirated engine, if you have 100 horsepower per liter, that's considered good. But when you have over 100, in this case, 100 and just over that, I don't want to do the math right now, but to get 520 horse out of 4 liters with no turbos or nothing is a huge achievement. Big. Okay, let's hop inside and have a look. Conventional doors. Now, the one thing that you get with an RS, you can spec it otherwise at no extra charge, but you get the carbon buckets. And everyone loves these seats. They're the best on a track. A little bit hard to use day to day. They're very expensive, all made of one piece of carbon fiber with almost like a clamshell design. And the seat moves forward and back. This car also has the color-matched green seat belts as well. But the seat, despite being like a race seat, is actually comfortable considering that. And you just slump right in. You're extremely well bolstered in this, and your thigh support is really good, but the best is your shoulders, because you have a dead pedal here that you're gonna put your left foot on to kind of push yourself into the seat so you're not sliding around. But with a seat that's bolstered like this and hugs you like this, it's like you're sitting in a cup. And with the Alcantara in the middle of the seat, it also helps kind of grip you when you're kind of going through serious corners. And that's really all this car, it's really where it shines. It's fast in a straight line, 2.9 seconds to 100. But the corners is really where this car shows where all that engineering paid off. Pretty standard inner door card when it comes to these cars, but the one thing that's different about RS's is in place of an aluminum door handle, you get these little tethers. So all I do is pull it in this direction. Nice touch. Like I said, it's really just for weight. It's not any more convenient. If anything, it's inconvenient, but a nice feature. This car has a black interior. It's all black leather and black Alcantara. It's got a gray stitch. You can kind of see the outlining of the seat and kind of gives it a little bit more dimension when you're kind of looking at it. It's got carbon fiber trim too. So when you get carbon fiber trim in a 911, there's not a whole lot of trim to put this stuff. Like some dashes are a little bit more elaborate. This one's very simple, and I liked it that way. So you got one piece of carbon fiber around your transmission or around your shift lever here. You got a little bit across the dashboard in front of your passenger, and a little piece here where that is kind of houses my ignition switch and my light control. There's no carbon fiber on the doors, and they even ditched the retractable door pockets in favor of these storage nets. It's all about the nets, believe it or not. This is a standard feature, but you have a net on the floor here where this is actually an extra option. So that you have to check off when you're ordering this car. This car has two very German options, okay? One is this storage net, and one is what they call the smoker's package. So all the smoker's package is it gives you a little ashtray here with a little cigarette lighter. This one's never been used, but I like the way they think, because even though this is a track car, maybe I want a cigarette, you know, who knows? A very well laid out interior, and I like the center console, and it's very, very symmetrical. One thing that changed from 991.1 to 991.2 is your PCM, which is your pretty much your display here. So it's always been touch sensitive, but now it's the graphics are a little bit better. The screen, or the bezel of the screen, kind of seems to go from edge to edge. So it just looks a little bit more updated. I like that a lot. Not spending a lot of time in here, but one cool thing that this car has is called Sport Chrono. Sport Chrono basically is a stopwatch on the dash, which you can use to track your lap times. And it comes with something called a lap trigger, so you can track your lap times, and it stores all that information in your PCM. So if you have a GT3 RS and you're no stranger to the track, it's a really nice resource to have. This particular car has an aftermarket dash cam system that's installed. So you have one in the front here and one looking out the back. This way you can record your laps and stuff like that, and see where you made mistakes and see where you can improve. These days, you can get this sort of stuff straight from Porsche. But at this time, I don't think you were able to do that, which is probably why this guy did this here. Steering wheel is really nice. Steering wheel is a little bit fatter with fatter thumb rests, and this one's made out of Alcantara. They're not all like that, but this one is. It's got a 12 o'clock on the steering wheel. It's got a nice yellow piece of Alcantara. This is to help when you're on the track, kind of better judge your steering. And that's one thing that I'm going to demonstrate for you when we take the car out, is that this car, despite having an electric steering rack, which every 911 before had a hydraulic steering rack. So when you go from hydraulic to electric, the trick is trying to have the steering stay communicative, even though it's working electrically. There's kind of a disconnect between the driver and the steering system normally when you have that, but two manufacturers that have nailed it, and when I learned that the steering rack was electric, I was shocked. Porsche, Ferrari. Every other manufacturer needs to take notes from these guys, because they somehow made this electric steering rack feel just as communicative as a hydraulic steering rack. And it works more efficiently because it's not a component that's belt driven. So you have less parasitic loss when you're trying to, on the engine, when you have this type of steering system. The gauge pods for 911s is something that they've carried on from gen to gen. Today, they have the one in the middle, which is for your tack, and they have screens on the side. But at the end of this generation, they still had 5 gauge pods. Now, the one in the middle, you can have the color of it change, just like some of the Ferraris that we reviewed. You have the pod that's right next to your tack on the right. That's a screen. This displays an array of information. You can have it display information relating to navigation, information relating to engine vitals like coolant temp, oil pressure, voltage, things like that. The gauge pod on the right tells you all of the information I just listed, but in an analog way. But what this screen does, it kind of sums up that information and puts it all in one place. Your speedo is kind of off to the side. Speedo goes up to 350 and the tack goes up to 10. Anytime I see a tachometer that goes into the double digits, I get kind of horny. And this car absolutely wails when you get close to that, get close to that red line. And that's really where the car shines, and it's not sweating one bead of sweat when you're pushing it to that limit. Car loves it. PDK transmission. Technically, BMW was the first one to put a double clutch transmission in a production car, but Porsche followed the next year, and it was far more performance oriented because they put it into a 911, whereas BMW had it in an M3. But they did a really good job with it, and it's something that Porsche makes in-house. It's not like some of the transmissions in the other cars that we reviewed that are actually developed by somebody else. Porsche does this themselves, and they did a fantastic job. It's obviously revised in an RS relative to a GT3 and other 911s. Your gear ratios are different and things like that, but they did a good job. Your selector lever in this car is kind of coated in Alcantara too. This is good because normally when you're racing, you're wearing gloves, and it kind of gives you a firmer grip on that. The paddle shifters on the steering wheel, these are all crafted out of aluminum. They look good, they feel good. They have a very nice touch to them. They sound great, and they shift really fast. There's no delay. Like when you're banging through these gears, you feel very connected to this car. And coupled with the steering system that I was describing to you, you feel very connected with this car when it's on the road and when you're driving the crap out of it. You got a little bit of carbon fiber on your door sill too. So you have the GT3 RS logo. You can get these custom made. So if you're ordering the car bespoke, then you can have your name there and stuff like that. This looks good. I like it. There's no rear seat. So the rear seats have been completely removed and they're just covered with some carpeting. So it's easy for you to throw your luggage, duffel bags, things like that back there. A lot of guys, and you'll see a few openings or a few recesses on the trim on the back here. And this is all for you to be able to install a roll cage. So if you're a real track junkie, it's something that's necessary. And I've seen a lot of, maybe half the RSs I've seen in the wild have some type of cage. And it looks, I think it looks really good. The engine's back here, okay? So another thing that they did to save weight was kind of give the same treatment to the carpet and stuff that they did to the rear glass. So they use less sound deadening in this car and they use thinner carpeting. So this way you hear more of the engine. And when you have no seats here and all the carpeting in here is extra thin, you really get to hear that engine wail. There's even a piece, a way that they actually let a little bit of air induction sound into the cabin for this express reason. By thinning all that stuff out, it kind of adds to the engagement, it adds to the theater, and just another way for you to connect with the car. And I think they did a good job with it. These seats, they look really good with the carbon fiber because a lot of it is exposed. And we'll get the camera in here so you can see the back of these things because they look like a work of art. And carbon fiber from the manufacturer, I don't care what anybody says, you can't replicate it unless you pay $1 bajillion. But anytime I've seen aftermarket carbon, it's never like what they do from the factory. Lamborghini, BMW, Porsche, these are all companies that have some type of stake in the development and manufacturing of carbon fiber. And I haven't seen carbon fiber better in any cars than these. And of course Ferrari too. But it just goes to show you the sort of priority that they put on this sort of stuff because they have to invest in this material. So it's cheaper to put into their cars. More importantly, they are able to maintain the level of quality that we're used to and that they want to provide when you're getting a car like this.
So with these 911s, there's not a whole lot to see when you pop up the engine cover, but there are still a few important details that I want to show you. So you just pull this switch and this thing opens. So this is what I was telling you. These are the two fans that I was telling you, they kind of expel heat out of your engine bay. When you look underneath here, you can see that this wing or this portion is all made of carbon fiber. This cowl or this piece that kind of covers the engine, this is all made of carbon fiber as well. Now, normally when you are opening a 911 engine cover, you have these little pistons that help keep the door open, or sorry, the engine cover open. Now, that would cost too much weight. So what Porsche decided to do is kind of put this tool that's kind of built into the hinge that you can kind of just push a little, it'll catch a notch and then it'll stay open. This negates the purpose negates the need for these sorts of struts that I was describing to you. And then when you want to close it, you just push this down ever so slightly and it kind of comes out of the notch and lets you close it. Not a whole lot to see under here either, but I still want to show it to you just to show you some of the details. So you have a button on your key that lets you open your front. Do that, slide this over and open it. So here, this exposes the two different types of carbon fiber that comprise the luggage compartment cover. Technically, that's what it's called. Now, these vents you see in the hood, you can see the underside of them here. And then when this hood closes, they kind of meet these inlets right here. And that's where it directs air down to the front brakes. This is where your puncture kit is in case you get a flat. That's where the battery is. It's put there to save space and to save properly distribute weight. That's your cabin filter for when you have your heating, ventilation, and air conditioning and stuff going. That's where it filters all the air. You still have a considerable amount of room in here. Here's a duffel bag, branded, designed for this car. It's an OEM car cover. And you can still fit some decent stuff in here too.
But I thought it was really cool because the first thing I wanted to do when I saw these holes in the hood when the car first came out, I'm like, I got to see what's under here, because I thought it would sacrifice some of this space, but it doesn't. You almost wouldn't even know what it is unless you, I read about it and know about it. So they kind of cleverly disguised that there, and I think it's a nice touch. The hood is also extremely light. So a regular 911 hood that's made of aluminum probably uses a different strut in order to open it. Since this is so light, these are relatively weak struts, only because they don't need to be that strong. All right, it's a hot one today. So I'm just gonna put the AC on. Before we have any real fun, you gotta let the oil warm up, which is a good time to kind of demonstrate how compliant or how nice this car is on the street, even though it's an absolute track assassin. Okay, I'm just in regular mode. PDK is in a soft setting. The dampening is in a soft setting. I'm not even revving that high, but every time it shifts, you hear like a little blip inside the cabin when it changes gears. I remember when I had a 2013 C4, and if I cold started the thing, it took a little bit longer than I liked for the engine to hit temp. And the key number that you're looking for is about 75 to 80 degrees Celsius oil temp. You need to wait until you get to that temp. And for any car, not just this, but any car, you gotta let the oil get to temp, because that's when its properties are the best. The viscosity is what it's rated at when it hits operating temp. To go and screw around with cold oil is suicide for your engine. There's not a lot of cushioning in the seat, which I can imagine would be kind of a pain in the ass on long drives. But the one thing that would bother me the most for a car that I'm cruising around in is just how upright I am. Like, I can't adjust any reclining. I don't want to screw around right now because I'm driving, but you know what? It's tailored towards, you know what it's tailored towards? It's tailored towards the track. But a small amount of suffering on the street. I'm in love with the steering. It's so direct and does not require a lot of, I move it a little, if I move it even a millimeter, the car registers this and the car changes direction. Despite having 500 horsepower, all on the rear axle, it's a kind of a difficult car to throw into a slide. Like, you can do it, it's possible, okay? But you can tell that it's engineered not necessarily to do that. And it's for a couple reasons. First of all, you got a lot of meat back there, okay? 325 tires, Michelin Sport Cup 2s. It's a sticky tire. So if that warmer that tire is, the more grip it has. So you can throw it into a slide, but you'd really have to try. And that's because where I feel like the serious German engineering comes into play, because to them, if you're just scrubbing tires, you're wasting time and it's costing you seconds on your lap times. So why do that when it doesn't really help achieve your objective of trying to get the best times? So all that rear tire meat, and especially considering the heaviest part of the car, the engine is right on the rear axle, and the rear wheel steering, this kind of prevents you from kind of acting like a hooligan in this car. And it's not really a hooligan car. In fact, I don't think a hooligan would find it very fun. Only because you can't slide the ass end out like you can in, say, an M3, which is one of the main things M3s are known for, some of the funnest things that you can have in an M3. But I like it. I like that German level, that German seriousness, that German procedure, and these German purposes. Just the whole way that they address all of that is, to me, the best. See, I was telling you guys that they also, all the measures they took to lighten the car, and among those things are the lightweight polycarbonate glass, and how they got rid of a lot of the sound deadening and they thinned out the carpet for this car. Now this ends up costing you, or not costing you, but it ends up, you end up hearing more tire noise and stuff when you're in the car. And I'm okay with it. You know, if I wanted a quiet car, I'll get a Mercedes or something like that, but small price to pay. Okay, screw around. 5th gear, 4th, 3rd, 2nd. Oh, I think it shifts so good. All I did was put it in manual mode. My suspension is still soft. The PDK is set to a comfort setting. I'm just changing the gears myself. That's all I did, because there's a few nasty bumps on this particular road that I don't want to hit. When I was 6,000 RPM, I still had so much more, so much more revs. Engine sounds so good. I'm a BMW boy at heart, and BMW, no one made an inline six better than them. Especially one like in the E46 M3 and the E36 M3 before that. So I love a 6-cylinder. But Porsche, they just made this Boxer 6 just wail, like just scream. One of the biggest engineering challenges that you get with Porsches is that it has to maintain that iconic look. You know what I mean? It's not, it has to meet a certain criteria. Okay, and I think that's a really huge engineering challenge and engineering achievement to keep recreating the same car without kind of walking away from the ethos that makes a 911 a 911, or more importantly, in this case, an RS an RS. And there's a button here for exhaust. I love buttons that have pictures of exhaust pipes on them, because a lot of these cars, like the Lambos and Ferraris, you'd think they would put a dedicated button for exhaust, but they don't. The only people that I see that have done this the most is Porsche. Oh yeah, this thing's woken up now. Yeah, I definitely feel the change in the suspension. It's not so stiff that, I say that as I just go over a bump. It's not so stiff that if you drive over a quarter, you can tell if it's heads or tails, but it's enough to keep the car firm on the ground. This car stays so flat. Like some performance cars, you know, if you take a corner, they kind of do a bit of leaning. I've never seen a car stay flat as good as a 911, especially one that's all purpose-built like this one. Tires are a little cold now, so it's easier for me to break traction. I'm being really nice to it. I don't want to be banging through these gears and through these neighborhoods. It's not nice. I'm gonna go somewhere where we can kind of stretch its legs out now that we're at operating temp. One thing that I think really helps the ride quality of this car is that most times with like performance cars or sports cars, let's say, you have a very low profile tire. So when you have a low profile tire, there's less give. It doesn't really make for a comfortable ride. Now the tires on this car are serious, but the profile of them isn't like an elastic band. It's actually got a little bit of, it's got like some meat to it. And it really helps because, you know, with the Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2, it's still a stiff tire, even though you have a slightly bigger sidewall. Yeah, it's really easy to get squirrely right now. I just saw a silver Porsche Speedster just drive in the opposite direction. It's like a $500,000 car, probably more. It's from this generation too. But so take the engine and transmission and stuff from this car and put it in a convertible and boom, you got a Speedster. More complicated than that. It's not that simple, but essentially that's what you have. Okay, this car is telling me the exterior temp is 37.5 and we're in motion. I bet you if we stopped, it would probably be worse. According to the weather, it's like 37, 38 degrees, feels like 48. At least with this sort of weather, the oil in the engine warms up a lot faster than normal. If it was during our colder months, maybe not necessarily in this car, because I had a regular 13C4, I would fire the car up in the morning to go to work, and that oil isn't warm for like 20 minutes. So that oil is not warm until I go get my morning coffee and need to go for a little bit on the highway before the oil gets up to temp. Then you can start banging through the gears. So this is important for your transmission oil, transmission fluid, engine oil, coolant temp. All this stuff needs to be at operating temp before you can beat on a car that's naturally aspirated. Any car really, but I feel like it matters most with a car like that. Now, don't worry, because even if you get a little too excited and the temperature isn't where it needs to be, the car will cut the power. So I've talked to you guys a lot about all the Alcantara that they put in these cars. It's cheap to make, relatively. It's not actual leather. It's like I said, it's like a synthetic suede. And it's always usually on the steering wheel, which is good, okay? But if you're driving the car daily and stuff like that, and you're driving the car with bare hands, after some mileage and some age, they don't look anything like they used to. And that's because over time, like your hands have sweat, and the sweat in your palms is kind of acidic, and it just kind of over time it ruins the Alcantara steering wheel. There's cleaning methods to kind of keep them clean. You know, they need some TLC, they need a bit of babysitting if that's how you're driving it. But the idea is that if you're driving the car and you're on a track, typically you're wearing gloves. So this just makes the Alcantara a bit more effective. They can be very expensive to replace if you just go to Porsche and you get a new wheel rim. But or if you get it reupholstered. So it's kind of one of those neat features. But hey, it's more than just a bragging right. It serves a purpose, and they need to be taken care of to maintain their look. These RSs with their huge wing, and this is a 991.2. The one that came after this has an even bigger wing. When you're in traffic and you see an RS, it's like you're swimming in the ocean and you see a shark fin, because you'll see the spoiler before you see anything. And to the trained eye, people know, hey, that's an RS. It's a serious Porsche. Let's open up the exhaust, firm up the suspension, rock and roll. Of course, I got a slow poke in front of me right when I come to this S-turn on this service road, so I'm just gonna leave a little bit of a gap so I can gather a safe amount of speed, but enough to have just a little bit of fun. Another thing I like about these naturally aspirated engines, especially when you have it linked up to like a transmission, like a double clutch transmission like this, your shifts are seamless, and it sounds a lot better. If you have a turbocharged car, it's like the car farts every time it shifts, you know, which I think farting's hilarious, but I don't want my car to fart, you know? Straight up, guys, this is probably one of the nicest cars I've ever driven. It's happy in a corner, it's happy at high revs. Like, it's not only comfortable in those situations, like it's happy there. That's where it wants to be. And it does it with confidence. It's not like you're driving like a pony car and you take a corner and you're just holding on for dear life. Like, very, very well engineered. No one touches these. I hardly scratch the surface when it comes to the details that make this thing a track monster, but I think Porsche did a really good job with it, which is probably why they outsell the previous model every time they design a new one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It's not an electric 911, but it's about as close as we'll get to that today. Like any true sports car maker, they weaponize that technology to make the car more potent. I'm Nima from MVL Leasing, and this is a 2025 Porsche 911 Targa 4 GTS Hybrid. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment and hit that bell so you know every time we release a new video. 2025 marks the beginning of 992.2, which is the life cycle improvement for this generation of 911. And they kind of came out of the gate with this car, the Targa 4 GTS. So there's a few significant improvements which we're going to highlight, but first I just want to get some numbers out of the way and talk about some of the things that make this car special over the car that it replaced. So the size of the engine has been increased from 3 liters to 3.6. It also has what's called, for a 911 or a Porsche first, it has what's called a electric exhaust gas turbocharger. Now, since it's a hybrid, it has battery power as well with the electric motor. So when you combine all that horsepower, you have about 533 horsepower and just shy of 450 foot-pounds of torque. The way the car kind of sets itself apart from the model that it replaced, I'm just going to highlight a few of the things in the front end which kind of show where kind of Porsche is going with a lot of these things. So right off the hop, the first thing that I noticed when it comes to these 992.2s are these vertical fins on your air dams. So before they were horizontal, now they're vertical. Not only that, these are active. So these swivel like this to alter your aerodynamics and alter how the air is managed when you're feeding these radiators. Now, since the car is electric and it's turbocharged, cooling is even more of a priority than it was before, because electric motors require cooling just like your turbochargers, and your motor oil requires that as well. In the middle here, you can see that the car has the adaptive radar. This helps with all your driver's aids. Just above that is your parking camera. So this is pointing downwards and it's kind of a fisheye, so you can see when you're getting close to a curb or an obstruction wherever you're parking. The next thing that kind of denotes 992.2 is the revised headlights. So the headlights before had 4 dots, and now they kind of have 4 dashes. This is kind of a giveaway that you're looking at a 992.2. These are what Porsche calls the HD matrix headlights. So in these headlights are adaptive projectors that contain just over 30,000 pixels to help distribute light properly. It's a very high-end lighting system. It's very cutting edge, and a lot of manufacturers have been doing this, like Mercedes and BMW and Audi as well. Okay, so let's break down the name. So it's a 911 Targa 4 GTS. So 911 is a 911, obviously. 4 denotes all-wheel drive, and GTS is probably the highest performing model that you can get that's slated just beneath the turbo. Targa denotes the kind of body that it has. So a Targa top is kind of somewhere in between a coupe and a convertible. So what happens is you have a piece that goes just above the front occupants that kind of goes and tucks just over the engine. And you have this unique piece of glass and a cross member that goes over the car that is kind of an iconic look. They've been making Targas since, I believe, the 70s. So I call it a gentleman's Porsche, and I think it's a good trade-off between somebody who wants a coupe but kind of enjoys a convertible as well, without having to kind of marry that idea. When we make our way around to the side here, there's a couple important things that I want to point out when it comes to this specific Targa. This one has the center locking wheels. The wheels are finished in gloss black. Whoever had spec'd this car pretty much wanted black everything, which is just my speed. So the brakes on this particular car are your standard steel braking system. So it's still a big 6-piston Brembo brake caliper. This one's finished in black with a white Porsche script on it. Now, despite being steel brakes, these are not discount brakes whatsoever. They still perform extremely well. They're internally ventilated and they're cross-drilled, and they're attached to the rotor hat with spokes. This is all to help manage heat. If you're taking the car on the street, this is more than enough to stop this car, despite the extra weight from all the hybrid components. Very effective. These new 911s that contain this technology, Porsche calls it T-hybrid, which means turbo hybrid. And they kind of put that in that Porsche font right here on the door, just to remind everybody. The mirrors have been revised on this car over the 992.1. You still retain the same semi-flush door handles that kind of expose themselves when you lock and unlock the car. So if I was to press unlock, sometimes you can set it up so when you walk up to the car, the door handles present themselves. When you lock it, they go flush. I think that's a really nice feature. Now, the one interesting thing about 992s is that prior to the 992 generation, which started in 2020, you were able to choose between a narrow body 911 and a wide body 911. So if you had a 911 that was an S, or a 911 that was an all-wheel drive, or a combination of both, you got a default wide body. So the track for the front wheels is wider than a regular car, but the most noticeable difference would be your rear wheel arches. They tend to kind of swing out like hips, and they step out a little bit more. I think it's a really nice feature, and if I was to ever have a 911, I would definitely want one that's a wide body, because it makes the car seem a little bit more muscular. Now, a lot of these cars that have the wide body, like now, they're all like this. You have what they used to call the dog leg. So it's basically a piece of paint protection film that is right on the front of this haunch. And this is really just to protect this panel against road debris and stuff like that, because when you have it sticking out this much, you're going to be catching a lot of debris, and over time it's going to basically dust this panel and ruin your clear coat. So this is on there from the factory. On a black car, it looks really good. It's almost not noticeable. On the lighter color cars, over time, just like with anything, when the sun hits it enough, they tend to go a little bit yellow. But on a black car, you just don't notice it. So looks wise, it lasts a little bit longer. This Targa 4 GTS has Goodyear Eagle F1 tires. Now it's a really good tire. It's a ZR rated tire. This car tops out at about 312 kilometers an hour. So you need a rubber that will be able to maintain its grip and things like that when you're at those speeds. For a 911, handling is always a priority. So the way that the tire is designed, or the tread pattern, is indicative of a car that can carve corners. The way that the tread is on the shoulder, which is probably where most of the weight of the car is going to be on when you're in a corner, is nice and kind of bricky with a little bit of tread depth. Now, when the higher performing tire you have, sometimes the tread depth doesn't look as deep as a standard passenger car tire. Now, that's all for grip. So some of these tires come from the factory with not as much tread depth as one would think. But this is just a compromise when you're trying to get a performance tire. Now, I believe this is a double staggered setup. So you have 21-inch tire in the back. It's a 315 tire. And then you have a 245 20-inch tire in the front. Even though the car's all-wheel drive, the all-wheel drive system is kind of biased to the rear. And this is all for performance. But when you have a car like that has a little bit of extra weight like this one does, you need to, it really helps to have a little bit of power in the front in order to help pull yourself out of a corner. Standard feature on this car is full four-wheel steering. That's a really good feature, especially for a car that handles. So when you're at high speeds, the wheels turn in the same direction. We're talking a matter of a couple degrees. And at low speeds, they turn in opposing directions. So even though the 911, based on its wheelbase and general size, it's already a very maneuverable car. So when you add the four-wheel drive system, you can pull in and out of parking spaces with ease, even if it looks like spaces looks a little bit dicey. When we come to the back, we see more revisions when it comes to 992.2. So we'll start with your engine cover. So your engine cover is revised here. Like these grills that are on top of the engine are revised, and so is your third brake light. This particular car was equipped with gray tail lights. So although they look gray now that the car is off, they do actually blink red. Now the cool thing with 992 is that all 992s have this one continuous light that goes across the back. Visually, this makes the car look wider. And prior to this generation, the only way you got the one continuous light that goes across the back of you, you had a 911 that was all-wheel drive. So this is an idea that they've kind of ran with now and became permanent, just like they made all 911s of this generation wide body. I think it's a nice touch and it makes the car look a lot more aggressive. Your Porsche lettering protrude a little bit more from where they're based, so they appear to kind of give you that floating look. I always liked this when they did that. And again, whoever had spec'd this out murdered everything out. All of the lettering for the Porsche badge and for the model number and the trim is all gloss black. I think that's really nice. You have a revised rear diffuser. You still have the exhaust in the center. They kind of spaced them apart now and made them a little bit oval shaped. At the bottom of the diffuser, they each have their own diffuser trim. Where the exhaust tips and the trim surrounding it kind of protrude a little bit more. And I think it's good because it gives the car a little bit more ground effect. The tail lights changed a little bit. So one thing that changed, one thing that they kept was your one continuous light. But when you are changing lanes or you have your hazard lights on, you still have this lower light now that does all the blinking. It's just a little bit more prominent. It still has it in the 992.1, but with this one, it just changed shape just a little bit, but still offers that optically wide look. Like I said, these mirrors are revised for 992.2. They look a little bit more angular and they look a little bit not as tall as the previous one. This particular car has the parking cameras, so you can see them sticking out right here. It's very difficult to notice and doesn't kind of stick out like on some of these Ferraris that have that same surround view feature. Now the Targas, you can always know you're looking at a Targa, if you can't tell by the rear glass, is by this cross member. Now these ones can usually be had in like a brushed aluminum look. This one is in matte black with the matte black Targa badge on it. This is how I would prefer it. This is how I would order it. Every spec on this car is probably exactly how I would order one of these cars. But it kind of goes up and over like this. And when we're going to show you a video, we're going to show you very shortly how this roof actually opens and closes, because this rear glass kind of comes and does a little bit of a dance, and then the roof kind of goes into place. Since we're on the outside of the car, it's kind of hard to notice unless I pointed it out to you. When the roof is down, you have a little motorized spoiler that's on the top of your window frame here. The reason why, the purpose of this is that when your roof is down, this kind of sticks upwards and helps shoot the air kind of over so as it doesn't kind of get caught up in the cabin. This is one of the features that are kind of inherent with a Targa and kind of perfectly illustrate how it's a good blend between a coupe and a convertible, because I still get that open top driving experience without having to commit to all of the other bits and bobs that help reduce turbulence inside the cabin. Really nice feature.
So when I stop the roof here, you can kind of get an idea as to the intricacy of all these motors and arms and stuff that kind of actuate this roof. But what I wanted to show you is this kind of clamshell that you have, clamshell window that you have here. I think it's a beautiful piece of glass. And the one thing, I know that this car is tinted, and it is, ask anyone who's an experienced tinting specialist, it is not easy to tint this piece of glass. In fact, what you have to do is, only because it's difficult to get to the very edge of this glass because of its shape, you have to remove all of the inner trim in order to properly tint that glass. I think it's needed from the factory. You do have a factory level of UV protection, but it still allows a little bit of light inside the car. And when you tint it, it just kind of lessens that. And when you have a black car, it kind of ties in really nicely and kind of blurs the line between glass and body panels. So I just wanted to point that out. You can also see where the roof kind of sits in this nice carpeted area and things like that. But I love this type of engineering and watching how it works, because to design this and see it in action is just, I don't know, I just kind of nerd out when I see that stuff. Okay, now that we're in the inside of the car, not a whole lot has changed, but there are some significant things that have changed that I'd like to point out to you. So, first couple things. Now, this one being a Targa, on your door sill here, which is dry carbon, not something I see very often on a 911, there's a little outline or a silhouette of a Targa. It's really nice and kind of highlights the special model that you're driving. Now, this car has premium package. So we get the Bose sound system, which is a really nice sound system. Porsche has never really disappointed me with their sound system, even if they weren't Bose. So I know Porsche knows their sound systems really well. Light revisions on the steering wheel. This car was equipped with the Alcantara steering wheel. We've talked about Alcantara, the pros, the cons. One pro, it looks really good and kind of indicates that, hey, let's have some fun. One thing that they changed for 992.2 is your light control module and your ignition. So before, there used to be two circles here above my left knee with like rotary knobs that you can adjust to change your lights from automatic to just your parking lights or whatever. Now they're just buttons. And now you actually have a start button. So despite having keyless entry and keyless go and stuff like that, you still had something that kind of looked like those older key switches where you kind of turn it like this. They've gotten rid of that. A lot of people don't like it. I actually like it. It kind of tidies this area up a bit, and I think it's taken them a long time to actually go with a start button. The only other thing I would do is just maybe get it done in red, so it just stands out a little bit more. Speaking of red, you have this drive mode button on your steering wheel. So this is a quick way for you to switch between all your different driving modes without having to screw around with your infotainment and stuff like that. It keeps all your attention front and center, which is where it should be. So what this does is it gets that electric motor in your turbocharger going and kind of gives you a quick little bit of boost just for a 20-second interval. So maybe you can do it on a straightaway, or if you're trying to pass somebody, or just try to have some fun. I really like that. It kind of asks for a lot of attention, and if I had this, I'd probably be pressing that a lot, because just like in the old video games we used to play, or you know, it's almost like hitting the NOS button like if we're in Fast and the Furious. It's kind of a cool thing. Guys, it's really hot in here, so forgive me for keep touching myself, but it's I'm sweating like a pig. One thing that is cool with these cars now is that you have a front axle lift. Now, the footage that we're getting of the car is actually the car in the down position, and there's more than enough space for you to traverse any dicey looking driveways or entranceways or parking garages or anything like that. But if you're like me and you lower every car that you buy, it's a really nice feature because it kind of gives you almost an inch or two of space when you want to raise the front axle. Another cool feature these 992s have, whether it's the 0.1 or 0.2, is that you can program your front axle lift geographically, and it uses navigation or GPS to know when to lift. So let's say your street to get to your house is not that great. Every time you come home and enter your street, it will know, and it'll automatically raise the lift for you. So you don't have to reach all the way over here and press this button conveniently located right here. You have an exhaust button. I mentioned this before. The one manufacturer that, you know, has really made this popular is Porsche, and this car is no exception. So this car has an active exhaust system with active flaps to kind of change the way that the car sounds. This changes when you go from one driving mode to the next, but you can also just keep it in comfort and just want to make some noise, you just press that button right there. They retained a lot of buttons, which is another thing that I like, and the most important thing is they retain some knobs. They retain some knobs in order for me to control my volume and stuff like that. Not a whole lot of touch sensitive buttons in here, but your console is touch sensitive.
The next thing about this particular spec that I like is that the interior is called what Porsche calls race tex. Feels like Alcantara basically. So it's there's no leather on the inlays of the seats, but the edge of the bolsters of your upper body and your thighs, these are stitched in leather, but the middle of the seat feels like Alcantara or race tex, like I said. Now, I've mentioned before too in other cars that we reviewed is that this is just for grip. So when you're taking corners and things like that. And if you ask me, it's a little bit more breathable. So if you have the leather seats, I would definitely encourage you to get the cooled seat feature, because this way it prevents a lot of back sweat from forming when you're driving. And if you're driving with the top down, I'm gonna guess it's probably gonna be hot. So that would be a nice feature to have. But the race tex, although it doesn't look as luxurious as the other options that you can have, I think looks great. And I kind of like that minimalist, purposeful kind of spec or option. One thing that's changed for 992.2, it's not a big one, and you wouldn't know unless you had them side by side, is that your instrument cluster has changed. So it's still fully digital. You have many different modes that you can alter the information that you see. But one thing that's new for 992.2 is that if it had equipped with Sport Chrono, which this one is, you put it into different driving modes, your tachometer in the middle just kind of gets larger. And the information on the side are all performance related vitals, like your water temperature, oil pressure, oil temp, voltage, things like that. So it gives you all the performance related information that you need, and the only ones that are actually, important when you want to screw around. With a Targa, you still have the back seats. They're just as small as they are in a regular 911. Good for small people, duffel bags, small luggage, parcels, things like that. But it's really neat because you have this crossbar kind of go over your occupants, and you have that giant window in the back, which beautiful piece of glass. The race tex patterning on the seats is carried on the doors. So the doors are actually stitched in leather. That's one thing I like about some of these 911s is that you can really go nuts with what you want stitched in leather. Everything from your fuse box cover to your dashboard to the top of your door here. So it's all black leather with a black stitch, and the race tex is in the middle of the door card here, and with Alcantara or race tex, sorry, door grips and elbow rests on your door. The dry carbon interior there's really only a couple pieces for it, and one is the one that goes across the dash. I like how the dash is all nice and straight. I don't like dashes that are too curvy or too complicated. This looks very easy on the eyes for me and looks pretty symmetrical. But you have your carbon here, right above your revised light control module and start stop button, and your steering wheel trim. Also right around here in your cup holder. Okay, so we're gonna take the car for a quick little boot now. I gotta make one complaint. A lot of cars today these days, actually. Porsche has this thing called connected services. So every time I turn the car on, I need to log in or do some bullshit like that. Why can't I just turn on the car and go and just show me all the information that I want? They collect all this data, and there's so much privacy settings and legal privacy policy. Why do I need to look at this when I'm just trying to go for a drive? I gotta go through like 3 different menus and make 8 different decisions just before I can see what's on my console here. Like, I understand that's kind of where we're going and stuff, but it's a little daunting. Like, sometimes I just want to drive, and I like cars that show a lot of technology, but I just wish it was a little bit easier to use. Another thing I like about 911s is that I don't care how big some of my customers are. You could be tall, you could be wide, they all fit in a 911. No one's ever sat in a 911 and been like, you know what, this is too small for me. And you can kind of tell I'm 6'1", and I always put the seat as low as possible. I want to be as low in the car as possible, not only for weight distribution, but because that's just where I want to have a good amount of headspace and stuff like that. And there's lots, okay? Lots. So right now I'm just going to be in normal mode, or like comfort, just till we get the oil warmed up. Since this car is a hybrid now, there's a lot of extra information that's shown on your instrument cluster when you're driving, like the state of charge of the battery and how much battery power that you're using, and kind of gives you metrics on efficiency and use of that electric tech that I was kind of telling you about. So right in the middle of my instrument cluster, you have the tachometer front and center where it should be, and you have a picture of a battery that kind of lets you know the state of charge, the range relative to how much fuel you have, stuff like that. So I think while we're waiting for the engine to warm up, I want to describe to you exactly how the hybrid tech works. So one thing that the car has is it's got 2 electric motors. One is on your turbocharger and one is built into the PDK transmission, okay? So the good thing about electric motors is that they provide instantaneous torque. So the power that is used for these motors are actually come from a brand new 400 volt battery, which is actually sitting right behind the dash. That's what kind of holds and harnesses the power that you are able to recuperate, and recuperates power in a couple different ways. So first I want to talk about the turbocharger. So the turbochargers generally, what they do is they use exhaust gas from the engine to spin a turbine. That turbine takes air, compresses it, and shoots it into the engine. When you shoot compressed air into the engine, your engine compensates by adding more fuel, because when you do combustion and you're shooting compressed air in there, you get more combustion, and your engine management system compensates by adding more fuel. This is how you get more power out of a traditional turbocharger. So they're exhaust gas driven. Now the electric turbocharger in these new T hybrids in the 911 have an electric motor that's attached. So the benefit to this is that if I want a power boost, probably from that red button that I was talking to you about, telling you about before, you can use that electric motor on the turbocharger to spool it almost instantly. This gets rid of any turbo lag whatsoever. So despite the fact that the car is turbocharged, you're not waiting for that power to flow in. I remember the first time I took out a 993 911 turbo, we were doing some extended road tests on this car that we just took in stock, so I had to take it home a couple nights. And this is 993 is just before 996, so the engine, I believe, was a 3.6 or a 3.8. Someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong. But it had 2 very large turbochargers on it. And one time I was taking a highway on-ramp and I kind of buried the pedal, and then the turbochargers ended up spooling up. And once those turbochargers on that car spooled up, it was like a big rush of power. I'm already in a bend, the car's all-wheel drive, and the car just started going straight. Honestly, guys, I shit my pants. Now, they've tried to mitigate that with other technology since then, like with variable vane turbochargers, so you can alter the angle at which the exhaust gases hit the turbocharger and how effective it is at spooling it up. But when you have an electric motor that can spool up that turbo, this gets rid of any lag and makes the car far more predictable. Now, for those of you that know a little bit about electric technology, when it comes to electric motor, inherently is also a generator. So when you're driving along and you want that turbo to be spooled and you want power and you want it right this second, that electric motor on the turbocharger will spool it, okay? But since that electric motor also has recuperation properties, that's when it uses your exhaust gas in order to spin that motor and turn it into a generator. So the same motor that gives that turbo more power is also works as a generator to recoup energy and put it right back into that 400 volt battery that I was describing to you. That second motor that I was telling you about is built into the PDK transmission. So as if PDK transmissions with its double clutch wasn't cutting edge enough, now they put an electric motor in there to help with that torque delivery. And like I said, this car has about 450 foot-pounds of torque. So to have that in a car of this size put through an all-wheel drive system is very impressive, and makes the car far more predictable and far more potent. That electric motor in the PDK transmission is also a generator. So when you're decelerating, it generates. When you're hitting the gas and you want power, it provides power, as an electric motor. Really neat stuff. This stuff was kind of born in motorsport, as is most performance tech that we see in sports cars these days. So one way I've heard it being referred to is KERS, K-E-R-S, Kinetic Energy Recovery System. So a lot of these cars, like the F1 cars and stuff like that, they have a similar battery like this car has, where it can actually hold power that's regenerated through the brakes and through the transmission and things like that, and saves it for when you want little power torque boost at strategic points depending on whatever circuit that you're on. So that technology always kind of is born in on the racetrack, but kind of you know, modified and used based on the same general principles for passenger cars, or in this case sports cars, and it's done really well. First time we saw something like this, I think, was in correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was in the LaFerrari. So that car was has a naturally aspirated V12 hybrid system, and I don't think there's any car that better exemplifies weaponizing that electric technology to make the car faster, because in the LaFerrari you can't go in electric only mode, but it uses a lot of the same features that I just described for this car in order to kind of propel it, and it's some really nice stuff. Now, when you have all this hybrid tech in this car, not only does it make it more potent as a sports car, it also makes it more efficient. So despite this engine being having a larger displacement than the one prior in 992.1, the car is far more efficient and it uses less fuel and has less carbon dioxide. This is especially impressive considering that you have extra weight and a bigger engine. So that stuff usually hurts your fuel economy. In this case, it makes it a little bit better. I complained to you guys before about how when you're in ordinary modes or default modes, when you fire up with a lot of these cars, that the car will turn off at traffic lights and stuff like that. Just so you guys know, that sort of technology where the car stops at traffic lights, this equates to a single percentage, not 1%. I mean something like 6-7% in efficiency when it comes to fuel. But when you're trying to kind of deal with the EPA and other regulatory agencies like that are kind of jumping down your throat with regard to how much carbon dioxide your car emits, every little bit counts. But simple solution to that, aside from a button that would turn off that feature, is to just put the car into Sport Plus. So now this car is a little bit awake now. Engine's making some nice noise. Oh yeah. You can hear the turbo whir, or like the turbo spooling, and also when I let off the fuel, you can hear the wastegate as well. And I think that's a nice feature. A lot of the cars that were turbocharged in other luxury cars and stuff like that, there's lots of measures put into place so you don't hear that stuff. I like hearing that stuff, especially when I'm in a car like this. So being all-wheel drive, this car has something called PTV. PTV stands for Porsche Torque Vectoring. So it's able to vector torque from one side to the other, front axle to the back. It does that really well. Revised for this car over 992.1. Another thing that's revised is PASM, or PASM, Porsche Active Suspension Management, which is a fancy way of saying adjustable dampening. So you can go from stiff to soft, or let the car decide. Ooh. I like that sound. You know, for a car that's bone stock, it's pretty lively and really lets you kind of hear that exhaust. Let's wait till we drive by this cop and then we can have some fun. So when you integrate all this hybrid stuff, like I said, one thing I told you earlier was that it makes the car a little bit more predictable. When it's more predictable, despite being turbocharged, despite having all this hybrid tech and stuff like that, the power band is pretty linear. That's what makes it a little bit more predictable. Unlike that 993 turbo I was telling you about, because when those things spool up, the thing just takes off like a rocket ship. You don't hear engine anymore. All you hear is suction. It also makes, when you have that electric motor inside your transmission, it kind of makes your shifts a little bit smoother. Whoa, this thing corners amazing. I'm not surprised. I shouldn't be surprised. With these 911s, if you have like a sweeping bend, just don't even touch the brake. I don't even hear tires squeal. I just took that bend at like 103, which is not breaking any records, but a lot of cars would be really nervous at that same corner. Now the cool thing is when I'm in Sport Plus on this car, I got my tach dead center, right? With 4,000 RPM as if it's 12 o'clock. So at about 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock, you have these little yellow markers. And as I'm shifting, these markers start to fill up the top of the tachometer, and when they hit the middle, they blink as a way to kind of indicate for me to shift. I think that's kind of a nice feature. This is a good thing about having a digital instrument cluster. Like this stuff can display an array of information in an array of different ways. I go over these speed bumps and I'll punch it. they still kept a bit of drama with this, which is, like I said, sometimes you sacrifice a bit of drama when you integrate some of this advanced hybrid tech, but they still kept the car lively. So when you have cars that have this type of technology, when you kind of start them, you don't hear a starter going bam, 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 and then the engine fire up. The engine just kind of comes to life, and it sounds really cool. It was kind of took a bit of getting used to, but it was really, really neat. Because the first time I witnessed that technology myself was in the new S-Class, which came out in 2021. It didn't have a starter sound. The car just kind of came to life. It's really neat, actually. See, when you got the four-wheel steering, it's easy to go into these tricky parking spaces at work. Doesn't take much adjustment, and if you have with enough practice, you get it right the first time, and you park perfectly. Car already just relative to its size, it's already very easy to park. But anyway. Thanks for riding with me, guys. I don't think any manufacturer does a good job of showcasing tomorrow's technology whilst retaining yesterday's iconic looks. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like and subscribe.